Okay. It is now 6:30 p.m. I am going to call the Charter Review Commission of the City of Kyle to order. First up is roll call.
Herval,
Here.
Knight,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Villalobos, Walsh,
Here.
Glickler,
Here.
Kirkwood.
Here.
Okay. Moving on to item number 2, approval of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes? No? Okay. Did everyone else have a chance to review the minutes? Okay. Do I hear a motion to?
Motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 1, 2,
I didn't read them.
okay,
I'm sorry, Jennifer.
so it's 5-1.
Well, no, I'm not against. It'd be like 5-0-1. I'm abstaining.
Can she abstain?
Because she wasn't here. What's the,
You're not specifically prohibited from abstaining on this commission, so yes, you can abstain.
okay,
What?
you can abstain.
I can abstain.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 3, citizen comment period. I will open it up for citizen comments at this time. And I have one citizen who has requested to speak. Howard? Yes, we hear.
Okay. Oh,
There you go.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me tonight. I'm not feeling up to speed tonight, so I just want a couple things. The Chair, I submitted this list of recommendations just to let you know, after I speak, I'm probably going to be leaving. I'm not feeling terrific. And if you have any questions in the committee about any of this, you're free to call me, and I'm available to speak anywhere, anytime about it.
Okay.
To elaborate on it? Okay. I want to speak tonight on advocating for an in-house review commission, or whatever you want to call it. I've seen it mentioned before. And I had them pass out these sheets here, which I think is the most compelling argument for having an in-house audit program, system, whatever you want. I'm not going to insult you by reading some of the obvious on here, but I do want to get on the record. So, on November 18th, 2023, we have Councilman Bear Heiser, Mayor Mitchell, Corey Mitchell, Travis's wife, Ashley Bradshaw and spouse, Daniela Parsley and spouse, Brian Langley and spouse, Robert Rizzo. Now, they all gathered at the Texarkana Cafe for, the note down here says dinner. And there's not a darn thing wrong with them gathering together for dinner. Where it went array is that it appears that Brian Langley, our city manager, pulled out his city credit card and a pen and proceeded to write down the credit card numbers of all these city officers here, including their spouses. Now, I know by investigating and looking in with the ethics committee that there was no public meeting here. Obviously, it couldn't be. The spouses were there. There was no notice given. But yet, they have violated the credit card policy by using city funds to pay for a private dinner to their benefit. Now, this is just outrageous, in my opinion. And to me, it talks about character. And I think we need to have a mechanism to shut this kind of baloney down. Now, back in November of 24, I had a personal meeting with Brian Langley and the finance manager, and I questioned them about the credit card charges, the receipts that were going through. It didn't seem to have a legitimate purpose. And their answer to me was, believe it or not, we can't ask. And we don't ask. We leave it up to the council person. I guess they're trying to hide behind the onus of, it's on the onus of the card holder to scrutinize whether their charge is legitimate or not. Nothing has changed since. Do I need to stop?
Well, you've reached your 3 minutes.
Well, do I need to stop? Because I know sometimes you can make an allowance. I'm not sure.
I don't have a problem.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay. So I emailed both the gentlemen a couple days later and says, apparently it's, the policy is beyond reproach. Nothing has changed. And by the way, these officers do get $1,000, or excuse me, $500 each a month, have for quite a while, as a stipend to take care of any incidentals like this that they would like to participate in. And that's why I would like to have a review committee. I strongly advocate for it, to shut this stuff down, because it only takes 2 rotten apples to destroy a city. And I think we're headed that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can leave that on, Mr. Powell. You can leave that on.
Leave it on?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna do it tonight.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Howard.
Thanks for your service.
Okay. Moving on to item number 4, consider impossible action. First item is, I guess is it 4.2? Consider an amendment to the regular schedule of the commission to choose an alternative meeting date for May 26th due to the Memorial holiday. So, yeah, May 26th is Memorial Day. And is May 27th a council meeting? It is.
It was rescheduled due to conflicts with some staff.
Do you guys want to have it like the 28th, 29th, or 30th? I probably can't do it on the 28th. Well,
What about the 19th?
I could do the 19th, but we're back to back on the 12th and the 19th. If you guys want to do that, that's okay. Or we could do the 5th and the 19th in May.
I'm good either way.
We'd still be back to back. On the 28th,
Well, no, the 5th and the
so
19th.
that'd be the 28th and the 5th would be back to back.
Oh, the 28th of April?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I wasn't looking back. I was looking
Oh,
forward.
okay.
My thought is, given how much time we really do have, do we need the, because one of the alternatives is just skip it. If we get through sections 9 and 10 tonight, and on the 28th, even if hypothetically we only got through 11, and then on the 12th of May, we got through 12, I think we'd still get through every section by the first meeting in June, and we have until early July. So I just wonder if we need it. Do we have to decide tonight, or could we decide on the 28th?
We could bring it back next meeting if that's what you want to do. We're just trying to get
I'm
an
just
idea of the schedule.
suggesting we.
I agree with Commissioner Glickler. And if we don't get far enough along, we can always schedule a special meeting in order to make the deadline, if it's needed.
I'm good with that.
So why don't we see how we do tonight and bring it back up at the next meeting?
Okay.
That's good with me. For some reason, I don't even have it on here on my list. I got every other date we talked about. But I think we discussed this before.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
we kind of
too.
discussed leaving it as a question, and so now we're trying to answer the
Oh,
question.
okay.
So I think we left it off as a
I
question.
just left it off because of that discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, item 4.3.
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
I moved to table this item.
Okay, second.
Second.
We have a first by Lila and a second by Commissioner Kirkland. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Item number 4.3, consider approval of recommended changes to Articles 7 and 8.
If we can get the red line up first, for the person in the back.
That's me, and I don't even have a link.
Uh-oh.
I don't think I have a link.
The person in the back.
Can we get I guess Jennifer doesn't have a Ring Central link to go through the red line. I can talk through the changes if everybody has a copy in front of them. There aren't a whole lot of them. There aren't a whole lot of them. When I went back to do this, I realized we didn't seem to make any additional changes to Article 7 last meeting, so it's just Article 8. And there were only about 4 changes. Yeah. So the first change is 8.04I, and we removed kind of some clarifying or detailed language so that it just, at this point, requires a provision be made for the health coverage, but without all the details on how they determine the, based on, years of service and all that stuff that was in the next sentence.
Everybody good with that change? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glicker, second by Commissioner Knight. All in favor, please say aye. Motion passes.
Okay, and then the next one is 8.05C. And that was the language that said that if the council didn't adopt a budget by a certain date, that the city manager's budget would be automatically adopted. And we had some discussion about, not liking that language last meeting, so I've recommended removal. That's
I
what
move
that
to
version looked
approve.
like.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Glicker, second by Commissioner Kirkwood. Any discussion? No? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, and then the next one is 8.10. And that was a wordy paragraph that had a lot of details. My suggested change was to say that all purchases made and contracts as executed by the city shall be pursuant to the city's purchasing policies and in compliance with all applicable law.
I move to accept the changes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was Commissioner Ford and Knight.
And then the last is the addition of section 8.15. This is language that would allow but not require the city council to create an internal city audit department or internal city auditor, which would be appointed, supervised, and removed by a majority vote of city council. And I put some requirements in for what an auditor would be. That's either a certified public accountant or a certified internal auditor. If you have suggested other requirements, I'm okay with that. I'm trying not to be too specific on the requirements because I don't want to be so strict that it'd be impossible to find somebody. But if the commission has some other requirements they want to add, we can do that.
Do we want them to be familiar with municipalities or government?
Yeah, we could put something about, I know under my provision for city attorney, it requires like 5 years of municipal work. So we could put something like that in. I worry if we go too far, if you try to put a bunch of details, that it's going to be hard to find a person.
We can add language about municipalities or government without necessarily putting a year requirement on it, just so that it's somewhere in the field.
So you could say it would be a certified public accountant or certified internal auditor and and be familiar with municipal governance in Texas, something like that.
Something
like
like
that.
that.
And this is a new position that we're talking about, or?
It's an
A
optional
possible
position.
position.
Okay, because I know we talked about the contract, going the contract route.
Right,
Or
so
vendor route.
the vote last meeting was to put it in as an option for the council to appoint someone without it being a requirement. So that way, when council decides that we need an internal audit position, they can add one in the budget and appoint.
They're not necessarily directed to appoint one now. It's maybe,
This is a permissive
yeah.
provision.
Okay. And they're going to report to?
The city council. That was what was voted on in the last meeting, to my
I
understanding.
didn't vote on that. Okay.
Now, the stricture that we have about city council not directing,
That would be a position that could be directed by
Staff.
city council, just like any position that's appointed by city council, so that's city manager, that's myself, that's municipal court judge, and that would include this position if it was ever created, would be able to take some direction from city council directly.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Knight.
I move to accept the new edition of 8.15 with the addition of experience with municipality budgets.
Second. Any discussion?
I thought we were gonna wait and have her, I thought we were gonna do something, and bring it back.
I can bring it back next meeting if you prefer, however you
Okay.
guys want to do it.
I'd rather, in my opinion, I'd rather see something that comes from comparison to what other cities have done than to make something,
Could we,
Up
so
for me.
this is compared to what other cities have done currently.
but but do any of them have that other language?
No, and a lot of them don't have it in the charter, to be honest.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is my preference would be to see what it is as opposed to verbally modify it from up here.
So
But
that would
that's
be
my
more
preference.
of a motion to direct us to bring it back next meeting, if that's the one. Now, there's a motion and a second on the floor, so we can vote, or the motion can be rescinded. Those are the options.
I was just discussing where I'm
Yeah.
gonna.
Do we want to move forward, or would we like to direct staff to bring it back?
I say we move forward. If we hate her language, we'll redo it,
Yeah, we're
which
going
we
to
probably
have,
won't.
yeah, we can do that. So we have a first and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any nays?
I'll be a nay.
Nay.
2 nays.
So it's 4-2.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
All right, the other thing that I had attached to this item was benchmarking on a finance committee. There was some discussion last meeting about There's some discussion last meeting about creation of a finance committee. I think there was some discussion around having residents on the committee, and I don't know if there was any discussion on having council members on the committee, but what I've done in response to that is some benchmarking. And so, City of Kyle, we always start with our 10 peer cities. Out of the 10 peer cities, there are 6 that do have some sort of either audit or finance committee. The City of Pflugerville has one that's got exclusively residents. San Antonio has one with 2 council members and 2 residents. The other 4, they're all exclusively council and or staff. And none of these committees are included in any city charter. They're all created by ordinance or resolution or some other method.
Okay.
In addition to that, I looked at 15 other cities. I tried to do a wide swath of populations, locations. So I looked at some of the suburbs like Katy and Grapevine, and some even smaller than that. And then I looked at pretty much the big cities, Fort Worth, Dallas, Houston, to see what they did. Out of the 15, again, 9 of them had some sort of finance or audit committee. 7 of those 9 were exclusively council members or council members and staff. Denton has one made up of residents only. College Station is a hybrid, so those are council members and residents. And the only city out of the 25 I looked at that had any kind of charter requirement was the city of Dallas. And that requirement is a standing council finance committee. So it's made up of members of council. And that's pretty much exactly what the language says, so it's also pretty vague. It doesn't have a lot of information about what they'll do. So there's some options. We can either not recommend any changes to the charter related to a finance or audit committee. We can recommend to council that a finance or audit committee be added to the charter, or we can recommend language similar to the audit language where it's permissive but not required. My recommendation is to not include it, mostly because I'm concerned about putting requirements of a commission or a board in the charter and not being able to fill those positions and not being able to change the requirements. So if we had a finance commission that required, 3 bankers and 2 accountants and 1 lawyer or whatever we require, and then we don't get applicants, then we have an empty commission and we can't actually meet. And so that seemed problematic to me.
Don't you do something similar with the Economic Development Committee? Is that by ordinance?
Yes, it's by ordinance. So it's not in the charter, but it is by ordinance.
But you specify different types of interest?
I believe we do. I know some of them it's optional and not required, and some of them it's required. It depends on the committee. I think on the economic development, it's required.
Okay.
We had some issues with that in my last city. We ended up changing a lot of our board and commission requirements to make them optional or preferred because we couldn't fill positions, and so it was
Yeah.
making it difficult to meet.
I understand. Commissioner Knight?
In the past, like the distant past, we did have a finance committee, and it was not terribly effective. And if the council elects to have an internal auditor, I don't think it's necessary to put this in the charter. They can always write an ordinance to add a finance committee.
So what I found in the 2 sets of benchmarking I did, because I did benchmarking on internal auditors as well, is that most cities that have an internal auditor have chosen to create an audit committee by ordinance when they get their auditor. And so it's quite possible that that would happen naturally at that point.
I agree with Commissioner Knight.
Yeah, I don't understand the point of having both an audit committee and an internal auditor when it seems like you said, one would follow the other. Why have both?
Well, like some governmental entities, school board is one. Okay, they have a bond committee who does all the research in, is basically, does some of the promoting or not promoting of the bonds. And that committee is made up of 20-some people. Yeah. And so you get different viewpoints. And they work closely with the school district's finance director. And so if there are any projects, they throw it to them to get their opinions and to see if there's buy-in. But yeah, I agree. If we have the internal auditor and if they decide that they would like to form some sort of committee, they can do it by ordinance. I agree.
Okay. So it sounds like the recommendation is to not include any new changes for that.
No.
I believe that finishes that entire item.
Do we need to vote on that?
I would take no motion as don't change anything.
Okay, moving on to, we have a public hearing?
Oh.
Item number 5, public hearing. It is now 6:52. I open the public hearing. Is there any residents wishing to speak? Seeing none?
Hold on.
Oh,
I think someone wants to get in.
there is?
That was from before.
Yeah.
No, this is a new person.
Notice it says, inputs,
Yeah, but that was, he spoke.
he spoke on this. He spoke on this. He did not speak on this on his recommendations. So I would think that this would be where he would want input placed regarding amendments to the city charter.
I don't know that it's required to read it out. If the board wants to have his input attached for the minutes, we can do that. Or if you want to read it out, you can, but
Which do y'all prefer? We can read it into the minutes, or we can just attach it to the minutes?
I'd say attach.
Attach it to the minutes.
Okay, attach it to the minutes.
I got confused because I saw him wave it when he was talking.
Yeah.
I'm just reading here, and I'm saying citizen hearing, input from residents, so this is what I would consider input from residents on changes to the city charter, just to be honest about it,
Yeah, it is redundant
with 3.
on the.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of,
Kind of invite citizens to speak on any matter before us, and then invites citizens to seek input, so, and anyway, I'm good with attaching it to the minutes.
Okay. Did I close the public hearing? Okay, it is 6:54, and I'll close the public hearing. All right, moving on to item number 6.4, staff reports and presentations. Receive a report and hold a discussion on Articles 9, 10, and 11. Amy?
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. You'll see we've kind of hit a point in the charter where I'm a little bit light on my recommendations. It doesn't mean there aren't things that you guys might want to change. It just means I don't necessarily want to be influencing you on what you recommend. So these are the provisions in Article 9. I don't have anything to say about any of them specifically, but I'm happy to hear from the commission if you have anything on Article 9.
Commissioner Knight?
9.03, tax assessor collector. We don't have one.
We have a contract with the county, is my
Yeah.
understanding.
Well, shouldn't it say that?
It's right here, provided that the city may contract for such services at the discretion of the council.
Okay.
My question as well.
We just elected a new one last year.
Yes. So any other comments on Article 9?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight?
9.04. It says taxes shall be due and payable, blah, 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 at the office of the Director of Finance or on such other date and place as required by state law. Okay, so,
Or authorized by city council.
Yeah, this is another one of those that's kind of long, and it could just be limited to state law or city council or however we want to do it, but.
Any other sections? Okay, moving on.
Okay,
All right, on to Section 10.
Article 10. Article 10, I had a couple that I wanted to talk about. My first one is 10.03, which is the comprehensive plan. Does anyone have comments on, or sorry, the comprehensive plan adoption and amendment, not the comprehensive plan, which is 10.02. Does anyone have comments on 10.01 or 10.02?
No.
Okay. 10.03, I pointed out that it's another one of those that has a lot of very specific requirements. And I kind of wondered, because it says in this particular one that the draft to be prepared, or the comprehensive plan will be prepared and drafted by personnel and/or consultants authorized by city council, but then there's a later provision, I think it's the CIP, that says it'll be directed by city manager or city council, chosen by city manager or city council. So I thought it was inconsistent with the
But-
other language.
Is the CIP different than the comprehensive plan? or-
Yes, they're
okay.
different. Yeah, the CIP is in 10.09, and it says, shall be initially prepared or drafted by personnel and/or consultants under the supervision of the city manager. And so it seemed inconsistent, and I'm not sure why the comprehensive plan would be treated differently, or if that was intentional.
Well, Commissioner Glicker?
Yeah, I think it may be a grammar issue, actually. The personnel and/or consultants are authorized by the council in 10.03, and then it just goes on to under the supervision of the city manager. And then in 10.09, it says by personnel and/or consultants under the supervision of the city manager. It just doesn't say that, I don't think it gives the council the authority, it just, the personnel and/or consultants are authorized by the council. Isn't that standard procedure anyway, that?
Depending on the value of the contract with the consultant, yes. But that would be the same for the CIP as well if we were hiring a consultant. So I'm just not sure why they're different and if it's intentional.
What's the value, in what capacity would a city manager be able to improve a capital improvement project?
Capital improvement project? The project itself, probably not, but if we had a consulting agreement related to the CIP that was less than $50,000, technically under purchasing policies, the city manager can approve contracts less than $50,000.
Is that for the full contract or
The
each?
full contract value.
Okay.
So once it goes over 50, it has to go to city council.
So if a contractor had two drafts, one for 25 and another for 50, he couldn't approve it?
Probably not. So if the contract was for 75, no, he could not approve it. It would have to go to council. It's probably unlikely we would get a consultant who could design the entire CIP for $50,000. Maybe that's, wishful thinking, but
So,
that's where we are.
okay, so you're seeing the CIP,
The language is just different. On the comprehensive plan, it says personnel and/or consultants authorized by city council. And that may be a grammatical issue. It may be that we need to make it clear that the authorized by city council is modifying the consultants and not the personnel. I'm not sure. And then on the CIP, it just says personnel and/or consultants supervised by the city manager. And so it doesn't have the provision for authorized by council.
yeah, I agree they need to be consistent, but I see the comprehensive plan is actually the plan document, whereas capital improvements are them actually,
It's the capital improvement plan. So we do adopt a CIP, capital improvement plan,
okay,
in addition to a comprehensive plan.
okay. It says program.
Okay. We call it program here, sorry.
So, does the council currently authorize the personnel and/or consultants who work on the comprehensive plan?
So to the extent that it's city personnel, no, the council would not authorize city personnel. If it's an outside consultant, they probably would, because it would probably be a more expensive contract.
Okay, they're going through a comprehensive plan right now. So how did they go about,
The comprehensive plan was already done, right? Now they're
Was
doing a
it done?
code rewrite.
okay, so were you here when they did the comprehensive plan?
No, it's
So
not.
we don't know how they actually,
I believe that was a consultant, which would have gone through city council to hire.
okay, so who did the research behind each consultant?
I don't know in that instance if it was happening now, we
Planning
would
and
do
zoning.
some sort of RFQ. And so based on the results of the request for qualifications, which RFQ, for a firm to do it, then we would bring that back as a recommendation to city council.
Okay. Any changes
To
to,
10.03,
Oh, three. Or if there's a general desire to shorten this because it's
no,
3 paragraphs.
no short?
no shortening this
Okay.
one.
Okay. Wow, I'm surprised, Lyle. Okay,
All right. 10.04, the planning commission. The reason I'm pointing this one out is because the provision seems very weird. They're appointed to 2-year terms, but they cannot serve more than 5 years. And the math isn't mathing to me, so I'm bringing it up to talk about.
well, in the event they are appointed, when someone has left, so they get a partial term.
So was the idea to be 4 years plus a potential partial term? Because that's not the way it's written.
I believe that the language needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
But I think 4 years is more than enough for planning and zoning.
My suggestion was 6 only because that's what most of our boards and commissions are. That's the only reason I put in 6. If we want to do it differently, we
Planning
can.
and zoning is heavy lifting.
I would just recommend that it be divisible by 2 and that we make some provision for partial terms. So if the partial term is less than a year, it doesn't count. If it's more than a year, it does, however we want to do that. But
So if someone leaves at 18 months, or within 6 months, that's considered a term?
the person who fills it would be considered a term, depending on how we define it. The way this is written, it would absolutely count toward the 5 years. So once they hit 5 years, they would be required to resign, even though they only served a partial term the first time.
Could we possibly state that they could fill an unexpired term and only be elected twice?
We could do that.
I think that
Yeah.
would satisfy the 2 terms.
So they get
And
2
would
full
allow
terms
them
and
to-
can serve a partial term.
Yeah, serve a partial term.
I'm good with that.
And do we want these to be consecutive terms, or do we want it to be a final and you're out?
Consecutive.
Okay.
Now, everything else we've got right now, they lay out a year, they can come back and
That's usually
start
the
it
way
all
it's
over
done.
again.
I'm just
Okay.
checking to make sure we're good.
Yeah, no, I'm, with consecutive is correct. Yeah.
The next one I have marked is 10.08. Are there any comments on 10.05, 06, or 07?
Oh, hang on.
Oh, there was something I highlighted, hold on a
10.05.
second.
10.05, 06, and 07. Commissioner Knight.
Yes, I have a few concerns on 10.05 because there have been so many changes at the legislature on what both cities and counties, but particularly cities, can do in terms of subdivisions and zoning. And so maybe we just need one of those phrases at the end of all of them, in accordance with state law.
So we could either remove some of this and replace it with in accordance with state law, or we could put a number J that says, planning commission shall take no action that violates state law, or something along those lines.
I would just add J.
Okay.
I go with J.
Okay?
Commissioner Knight.
It says under E that the P and Z may submit to the city manager a list of recommended capital improvements. I don't think they've ever done that.
Not to my knowledge.
I mean, I've suggested they do it, and they don't want to go there. So, I don't know, maybe omit.
I think
Would
that's
it be
the point.
because, well, go ahead.
I think that's the point of using the word may, is that it is permissible. It just hasn't been enacted in recent memory.
Okay.
I mean, if you got somebody on the commission who had some good ideas as to a direction in that respect, you'd give them the leeway to do it with leaving this in there. Right now, the people may not feel like they could advance a plan that would be amenable or whatever. I'm trying to come up with the words, and I'm not.
Well, I think there's so many priorities for the city right now, wastewater, water, but I agree that we should actually leave May in there.
Okay.
Because I do believe, maybe when I was on planning and zoning in 2007, we had some of that, we suggested capital
okay.
improvement projects. So I just think that now there's a different priority list. And council has to take care of those priorities.
Okay, so it sounds like we're just gonna add the J to 10.05. Are there any comments on 10.06 or 10.07?
Commissioner, back to 10.05?
10.05H.
H, okay?
It says that they're going to obtain information relative to its duties from the city manager. They're actually getting it from the planning director, and I'm just assuming that's coming from the city manager. I mean, this is more of a question.
Yes, she's called the Chief Development Officer, and she reports through to the city manager.
So just leave it.
We can just leave it, or we can change it if you would prefer. The problem I have with putting specific titles of employees that are
Yeah.
below the city manager is that those titles change. For example, you referred to her as the planning director, and she's the Chief Development Officer. And it looks like Ms. Knight has another comment.
Do you have another comment?
Yes, I want to add something else.
Okay, go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
guess it would be K. Or J and make J K.
Okay.
I would like to see the Planning and Zoning Commission either recommend or submit comments on development agreements.
Okay. You can put that in.
Either make recommendations or submit comments on development agreements. So many of our subdivisions now are being done through development agreements, whereas in the past, we rarely had them.
A lot of them are done kind of in combination. So we've had one that was relatively recent. There was a development agreement and a PUD, and so the PUD went to
Right.
planning and zoning, and so to a certain extent, there was some conversation about what would be in the development agreement in that way, but not all of them do both. So I understand what you're saying.
Anybody have any opposition or comments in regards to that suggestion? All right,
Okay. 10.06 or 10.07?
I don't have
waiting for Ms. Knight to see if she has anything.
Ms. Knight, do you have anything on 10.06 or 10.07?
I'm good.
Okay, 10.08. This is the Board of Adjustment. And I picked this one because it has kind of a different requirement in it that doesn't apply to any of the other boards and commissions in the city, and I just want to make sure that that's something we want. So,
Yes.
okay. The Board of Adjustment says in the charter that that members of the Board of Adjustment shall not qualify for any other city office. So that would suggest to me that that would be the only board or commission in the city where you couldn't serve on more than one board, period. And then the other question I have is that we've recently passed an ordinance that created alternate members for the Board of Adjustment. This doesn't technically apply to alternate members the way it's written currently. Are we still okay with that? Like, alternate members can be on other boards, but once they become regular members, they have to drop off the other boards.
And what was the purpose of the alternate members coming into the ordinance? Why did they decide they had to do that?
There were a couple of instances where they had difficulty getting a quorum, and so if they have alternates, they can call them in if other people aren't available.
Like
And
alternate
then,
jurors,
as people
okay.
fall off, they can reappoint them with alternates.
Yeah, I think they need to be held to the same standard as a regular member.
It sounds like they're being used quite a bit, so.
I don't know that they have been used at all yet,
They
but
have.
they're relatively new. We only appointed them a couple months ago.
Commissioner Knight?
I have a question.
Oh my God, I don't know.
It's my understanding, and it could very well be wrong, that the Board of Adjustment is almost like a quasi-judicial
That's
body.
correct. So, you can only serve in one quasi-judicial body. You cannot be in the Planning and Zoning and the Board of Adjustment. But there's no state law that would prohibit you from being on a quasi-judicial and an purely advisory committee. And we don't currently have a policy on council that prohibits that either. So to be considered an office under the Texas Constitution prohibition on dual office holding, you have to be greater than advisory. And you can't hold two offices that are greater than advisory.
Commissioner Knight?
Does it make it more difficult to find people wanting to serve on the Board of Adjustment if they can't hold? Actually, don't we have like a provision in our ordinances that you can't serve on more than one board or commission?
We do not.
I bet we do.
Jennifer's looked into this. I've looked into this. We do not. And if we do, it's labeled very weird and not somewhere where anybody could find it.
Okay, so I may be mistaken, but wasn't a member of the planning and zoning recently had to step down for some reason?
Correct.
And I'm not sure what the reason was.
Correct. She held two greater than advisory offices.
okay.
Only
She
one of them
managed.
was with the city of Kyle. That is a statewide ban. You can't have two greater than advisory offices, whether they're all in the same city or they're not.
Okay.
At least as long as they could be considered incompatible with each other. That's really the crux of it, is if they're not compatible with each other.
Commissioner Glicker?
Are you familiar enough with the alternates that have been used so far where this would have been an issue?
There's currently an alternate where it would be an issue.
And we're already having enough trouble getting a quorum.
They don't meet very often, but I've been to one meeting where we literally had to call somebody to show up or the meeting was going to get canceled for lack of quorum.
I wouldn't mess with it then.
How many alternates do you have right now?
After tomorrow,
We're back down to
we
one.
currently have two, and there's either tomorrow or the next meeting, we're bringing back an ordinance that would move one of them up to a regular because we've lost a regular.
Okay.
So,
I was gonna say, if you had a deep enough board, I wouldn't worry about it, but
right.
you've got a shallow team there.
Commissioner Knight?
Whenever I see them, they do not meet often,
That's correct.
but whenever they do, it's like a red flag. So I always watch them. And I know the city of San Marcos, they use theirs much more often, but they also have alternates.
Right. Kind of getting a feel for not changing it right now, and we can always change our minds next meeting.
Just, I would leave it.
Okay. All right, that's all I have on Article 10. Does anybody have anything on 10.09 or 10.10?
Commissioner Knight?
No.
Not on 10.09 or 10.10?
Well, I kind of did, but then I read the fine print closer
Okay,
and decided no.
okay.
All right, moving on to Article 11.
Okay, Article 11, here's the list. I don't have any specific provisions that I want to discuss really in detail, except that I want to note that 11.11 and 11.12 seem kind of weird in Article 11, and I feel like if we're going to keep them, perhaps we should move them somewhere else where they might make more sense. But that's just my take on it, because the rest of Article 11 is really focused on franchises and utilities, and those provisions are not necessarily.
So we change the title of Article 11 altogether then?
So I think they added the title contracts just to cover 11.11 and 11.12, but I'm not really sure. 'Cause the rest of 11 to me feels very focused on franchises and utilities. And then 11.11 and 11.12 are more contracts in general. I'm not sure if they were, I can't tell when they were added or if they were in the original.
Yeah, but 11.11 speaks to,
Speaks to utilities, but it also speaks to parks and swimming pools. So I don't know if maybe it was just utilities and then they added in park and swimming pool, because it says communication system, park, swimming pool, or other utility, and I've never thought of a park or a swimming pool as a utility, so that just seems kind of odd language.
Commissioner Knight,
I'm for moving them,
Okay.
where would you,
11 and 12,
where would you move them to?
under general provisions.
You wouldn't recommend changes, you would recommend moving them.
I like the way it's at.
Okay. 13.
There's also,
The only question I had about 12 was specificity. Maybe it would be trying to draw too much specificity to it if we had sports facilities in there, because are we considering them to be parks? Because the city council's been talking about making a regional type sports facility to attract outside vendors and such.
You're looking at 12 or 11?
And I'm looking at 1112, where it says civic
Okay.
center, parks, golf course, swimming pools, water and wastewater treatment plants. I was wondering if we need to add sporting facilities into that.
I would think that because we have parks, comma, golf course, comma, swimming pools, and then towards the end where it says any other such property, I think that would,
Okay.
otherwise
I'm
we,
amenable. I have no problem with that,
okay.
as long as it can be
Commissioner
read into it.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Knight.
Not make these arguments,
if I was looking for the content of 11.11 or 11.12, I would look under Article 1.
Would you?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
I
but
think that might make more sense.
I feel like that they pertain more to utilities than they do parks and swimming pools. Those are just in there.
I don't see it in one, but I get the.
My concern is if I was looking for a prohibition on selling or leasing a swimming pool, I would not look in the section labeled utilities.
No.
And that was my concern.
Agree.
All right, let's see a proposal next time for moving
Okay.
it into,
I can play with it in a couple of sections and see what makes the most sense and bring back a recommendation.
that sounds good to me.
And then open for any other comments on the rest of Article 11. Otherwise, we might finish really early today.
You have anything? Commissioner Knight, do you have anything?
Nope.
Commissioner Walsh?
Nothing additional here.
Commissioner Glicker?
I'm good.
Do I hear 7:20? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There you go.
Happy Easter.